on my side. The enemy would have swallowed us, would have drowned in their waters, but our souls have found an escape, a hiding place in you. The fowler's snare is broken. Our help is in the name of the Lord, is in the name of the Lord. No, nothing without you, without you. You are the air that I breathe. Can't live without you, without you, Jesus. In you I live and move and have my being. Hosanna to Jehovah. You are the air that I breathe. Hallelujah, hallelujah. In you I live and move and have my being. Nothing without you, nothing without you. You are the air, you are the air that I breathe. Can't live without you, can't live without you. Oh, in you I live and move, have my being. Nothing, 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 nothing without you, Jesus. Nothing, nothing without you. You're the air that I breathe. Can't live without you. Can't live without you. Oh, in you I live and move and have my being. Say Hosanna, Hosanna to Jehovah. You are the air I breathe. Hallelujah, hallelujah. In you I live and move and have my being. Hosanna, Hosanna to Jehovah. You are the air, you are the air that I breathe. Hallelujah, hallelujah. In you I live and move and have my being. Ooh, yeah, 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 have my being. Nothing without you, I'm nothing without you. You are the air that I breathe. Can't live without you, without you. In you I live and move and have my being.
Greetings, saints. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Thursday. Thank you for being a part of this stream. We welcome everybody across the different platforms where this message is being streamed. Today we are so excited, ready to learn, to begin our learning on the subject of mental health. And really what we are after is to embrace our wholeness in the Lord. Before we go to that, remember, we have prayer tomorrow at 7 to 8 p.m. on the Zoom platform. Please ensure by the end of this night that your details are updated on the website. Our team will send out text messages with a confirmation of our link for the Zoom prayer. It hasn't changed. It's the same if you received it before, but if you haven't, you'll be able to get it tomorrow morning. So please ensure your details are up to date. Of course, we have our services on Thursday at 7:05 p.m. as well as on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. We also have prayer on Sunday at 8:20 a.m. to 8:55 a.m. So let's come together. Let's make tremendous power available. Let's partner with the Lord in the area of prayer. Hey, if you'd like to give today, if you'd like to offer, we always love doing that. I like giving. The details for offering are right at the bottom of the screen. Please use those. In a moment or so, we're going to be crossing over to Dr. Zama. But I just want to say, one of the worst things that could happen to one in life is that you go through and not even know that there's something going on that needs attention. Sometimes you find that you'd have a condition and not even be aware of the fact that there's a condition that affects you, affects the way that you interact with others, just basically limits you, inhibits your space, and really affects everything that concerns you. We know for sure that our healing, our health, our wholeness, our peace was purchased by Jesus. He was striped on his back for our total life health, our total life wholeness. He went through everything that he went through for our total peace. So even as we start out on this journey today, what we are really after is embracing total life health and total life wholeness. You know, sometimes when we are affected by things that we are not aware of in our lives, it affects the way that we approach our lives, affects the way that we interact with others, affects the way that we handle anything and everything that comes our way. Sometimes we even mess up opportunities, if I can use that word, in different spaces because we are not aware of things that are hidden, of things that are going on within us that need attention. So I challenge you today, let's get into this journey of healing and health. It starts with acknowledging where there's something that needs attention. What follows that is getting help. We must get help. Those who had ailments and issues of different kinds in the day of Jesus made sure that they got to Jesus. Some were carried to Jesus. Some were brought to Jesus. Some went by themselves to Jesus. Remember the woman with the issue of blood? She pressed through the crowds to get help, to get her healing, to get her solution. And that's what we must do. The moment we realize something is out of order, something is affecting my life, gather the courage, find a safe place and get help, because wholeness is the will of God for our lives. You know, beyond ourselves, sometimes you find that you meet, you interact with someone that's affected one way or the other. That's not okay, that's going through. Now we need to know how we can help others. We need to know how we can support others. We need to know how we can interact with others who are affected, not in a way that alienates them, but in a way that shows the love of God, in a way that facilitates healing. The great Dr. Miles Monroe says, all I know is what I've learned, and what I've learned is not all that there is to know. In other words, our attitude should always be one of learning, of increasing in knowledge, so that we can live our lives effectively, so that we can be a blessing to others and really our generation. So here's my challenge. Let's learn together today. Let's find our healing and wholeness, and further, let's learn so that we can love others even as we love ourselves. I'm excited about this. My wife is going to be next. She's going to take us through your mental health. Let's get as much out of the session as we can. Further, if you need help, if you need support of any kind, details will be up at the end of this stream. Let's stand by each other, support each other, help each other embrace our total life, healing and health in the name of the Lord. Dr. Zama is next. Let's go.
Good evening, Saints. Thank you for joining us for our Thursday service. I'm Dr. Zama. Apostle Temba last week started speaking about our health and healing. And today we'll just continue from there, but today we'll focus mostly on mental health. And I know that every time everyone thinks mental health, you think, oh my gosh, this topic is so overdone. What more can we know? I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, and that's okay if you're not. But there are other people out there who are struggling with mental health, especially in the church. And we need to be informed. We need to, arm ourselves with information. about mental health, and I hope this evening's talk will help someone and empower someone to seek help. Okay, so we first have to define mental health. So what is mental health? According to WHO, mental health is a state of well-being in which one realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stress of life, works productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her own community. So in summary, it's basically a state of wellness and well-being where you are able to cope healthily with stress that life may throw at you, and you're also able to work and function, in a way that is productive in your community. Mental illness is therefore a state where you don't realize your abilities, where you can't cope with stress normally, you have poor coping skills, or you don't know how to cope with stress, and this can affect your social and occupational functioning as well. There are a number of reasons why someone can develop mental illness over someone else. One of those reasons is genetics. So if you have a family history of someone who has had a mental illness before, chances are you are at a higher risk of having a mental illness than someone who doesn't have a family history of it. One of the biggest reasons that we see for people developing mental illness is trauma. So what trauma does is it affects your ability to react normally to stress. It affects the balance of hormones in your brain, and it causes your mind to constantly work overtime. Trauma can cause anxiety disorders, it can cause certain depressive disorders, it can cause even personality disorders as well. Another factor that we can look at is poor attachment. So if you have been through things as a child, maybe you went through some form of trauma or abuse, maybe you were neglected, maybe you didn't have a caregiver who was present in your life, maybe your parents were separated, you had to move between homes, maybe you moved around a lot, you changed schools, you couldn't form proper relationships, whatever the case may be, poor attachments oftentimes puts one at risk of having some sort of mental illness. It's important though to note that not everyone who has these risk factors is going to have a mental illness. So just because maybe you had attachment issues, or maybe you went through some sort of trauma, it doesn't mean that you will be affected in a manner that is negative. We're not all the same. We are different people, and different things matter to us. Dr. Anita Phillips, a psychologist, usually, she actually structures the sum of our mental health being freedom from emotional pain, freedom from physical pain, access to emotional pleasure, and access to physical pleasure. And the one that matters the most to you is usually the one that determines your mental health. So we're not all the same. Like I was saying, that just because you have those risk factors doesn't mean that you will have a mental illness. So if for you emotional pain is not, like, it doesn't really affect you as much as physical pain does, then you will react differently to someone who's been physically abused and someone who's been emotionally abused. So one of the biggest things that affects our mental health regularly every day is stress. Stress is simply the physical, mental, emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension. Stress can be external or it can be internal. So external, which is what we'll mostly focus on, is stress from your environment, be it work, school, family. It can be psychological stress or social situations. Internal stress, mostly seen in the medical field, is basically stress that your body is put under by maybe being ill in one way or maybe going through surgery. So when your body is under stress internally, it releases certain hormones that will help your body to continue to function. Stress is good in its own capacity. So what happens when you're under stress is that the fight or flight response in your body is activated, and this releases adrenaline, noradrenaline, and this has different effects on your body. So it allows us to respond appropriately to moments of pressure. So for example, if someone is coming after you, or if a lion is chasing you, the fight or flight response is activated. So it's either you fight or you run, so if maybe a deadline at work is due, the fight or flight response is activated and you work harder, so it affects our body in different ways, but that is so that we can continue to be productive and basically to continue to survive. It's for our survival instinct. But the problem is that if you are exposed to stress for a prolonged period, or you don't have an ability to respond well to stress, that's where the issue is. That is what then puts you at risk of developing a mood disorder or an anxiety disorder. So some ways that you can use to cope better with stress. I'll just speak on a few healthy coping skills. So you can divide them into problem focused and emotional focused. And the ones that matter to you the most is always the ones that you will apply in your life. So problem focused skills could be asking for help when you need it. So ask for help at work. If you're struggling at work, ask for help in the home setting. Whatever it is that you may be going through, ask for help. It's important to also set boundaries for yourself. Setting healthy boundaries basically is making sure that your space is protected. So if your boundary would maybe be, I'm not going to bring work home, that's then how you will work. So you will work in a manner that allows you to complete your work and leave it at your workplace and not have to bring work home. Set boundaries where relationships are concerned as well. Be practical. So set practical goals for yourself that you can achieve. Set practical short-term goals, medium-term and long-term goals, and be honest with yourself as well. Create a to-do list if you need to. Create a planner, whatever will work, and be practical for you. But don't now expect yourself to jump through hoops and build a whole city in one day. Even the saying goes that Rome wasn't built in a day. And then some emotional focused coping skills that you can practice would be to exercise and eat a healthy diet. Establish good sleeping habits. So don't use the bed for anything other than its intended purpose. Don't, for example, look at a screen before you sleep. Try to relax your mind and rest before you go into sleep. Make sure that you're getting proper restful sleep. It's not about the hours, but it's about the quality of your sleep that you're getting. Read and declare the word. We are people of faith, so our whole basis is based on the word of God. So read the word, declare the word. Philippians 4 verse 8 says, whatever is good, whatever is proper, whatever is of good report, think on these things, meditate on these things. That should be your basis every day. Make social connections as well. No man is an island. We're created for relationship and to be in community. So it's important to make some sort of social connections that for people that you can be accountable to as well. And the last one would be to practice mindfulness. So mindfulness is basically bringing to your attention the experiences and the feelings that you are experiencing at that specific moment. So your body is a very good way to figure out how you are feeling at a certain point in your life. So your body does try and tell you and make you aware if you are under stress, even if you may not realize. But listen to your body. You may find that up until this time that I've been talking, you haven't been taking deep breaths, you're taking shallow breaths, or maybe you haven't exhaled, or maybe your jaw has been clenched, or your eyes are tense, or your muscles are tense, or your stomach is in knots, or whatever. Relax, breathe, take deep breaths, unclench your jaw. Practice mindfulness. Basically, be aware of how you're feeling, and then bring that to light and deal with it. There's no point in avoiding your feelings, and we'll talk about that just a bit later. So like I said, that trauma can cause some anxiety disorders and some mood disorders, but there's different types of mental illnesses that we see. There's psychotic disorders, there's personality disorders, there's mood disorders, and like I said, anxiety disorders. Some of these mental illnesses are acute, which means that you can treat it and you can recover from it. So be it with just therapy or with therapy and medication, or counseling or whatever. But some of them are chronic and they will require lifelong treatment. So then I always ask that why is it then easier for the church to accept other chronic illnesses and not mental illnesses? What about mental illnesses creates the stigma and makes them so taboo to talk about in the church? It's so easy for a person to say, oh, I have high blood pressure and I'm taking medication for that. But you can't come out and say, I have major depressive disorder and I'm taking medication for that. So we need to start changing the way we view mental illness and changing the way we speak about mental illness as well. We shouldn't demonize it. We shouldn't invalidate how people are going through. We shouldn't make people feel ashamed for having mental illnesses. Like I've explained, that it's like any chronic illness. So that with most of the chronic mental illnesses, they have to do with an imbalance of hormones in one's brain that affects your coping mechanisms, that affects your mood, it affects your cognition, it affects your appetite, your energy, your sleep, and they may require lifelong treatment. The Bible in the book of Hebrews chapter 4 verse 15, it says, we don't have a priest who is out of touch with our reality. He's been through weakness and testing, experienced it all but the sin. So let's walk right up to him and get what he is ready to give. Take the mercy, accept the help. This is the Message translation, and I like that it says that Jesus has been through weakness and testing, and as our high priest, he makes intercession on our behalf. Remember what the high priest in the Old Testament would do, that go and present the people's supplications and prayers before God on their behalf, but they had to be blameless, and Jesus in this case has experienced it all but the sin. So he knows our reality. He knows what you're struggling with. He may not necessarily have been through the actual anxiety disorder or the depression, or bipolar. When he was on the Mount Gethsemane, when he was praying and asking God to take this cup from him, the Bible describes his emotion to be so strong and intense, So when he says that he has been through weakness and testing, he literally has been through those strong feelings that you're feeling, those feelings of being overwhelmed and feeling like you can't do this anymore, So he knows, and he is interceding for us. So that's why I feel that we shouldn't shun mental illness. There is a solution for people with mental illnesses in the church, and I know that sometimes it may be hard to find the balance between faith and mental health, but I'm just here to remind you that you matter to God. This is the same God who will leave the 99 and go after the one, and you are that one. You may be feeling depressed, you may be feeling very low, feeling suicidal, feeling constantly anxious every day. It has nothing to do with your faith. It has nothing to do with how little you think God loves you. Nothing you can do can make God love you less or more. He loves you more than you can ever fathom. And because of that love brings with it healing. That love brings with it reassurance, and he says, and Paul says in that verse, accept the help. And I think that's important, accept the help. Help comes in different forms. It may be spiritual, it may be medical, it may be psychological. However way you need your help, you need the help, accept it. Ask for it and accept it. Reach out and access it. There's a lot of organizations that help deal with mental illness. There's a lot of individuals who are there to support you, so reach out and access that help as well. I hope this is helping someone out there. We'll just briefly talk about anxiety, and specifically I wanted to speak about anxiety because we are living in quite uncertain times. Well, they seem uncertain because of what we're going through, the global pandemic. And a lot of people may find that they are struggling with anxiety because of that. And so what anxiety is basically stress that's out of proportion to the impact of the event that you may have experienced or are experiencing. it's also an inability to set aside your worry and restlessness, and it's an irrational fear with no feasible threat. So as we always preach at LGTG, that you live in a body, you have a soul, and you are spirit. So because all of these three elements are connected, it's quite rare that you can have one element affected that doesn't affect all of the others. So with mental illness, it affects your mind, which is part of your soul, you know. So in that way, your body will be affected one way or another. Your spirit will be affected one way or another. And it's important that you listen to your body, you know. You listen to what your body is saying. Listen to those small signs, you know. Listen to the small knots in your stomach. Listen to the tension that you're feeling. Listen to the migraines that you're having, and find where exactly the source of anxiety is coming from. It may not be physical, but it may be mental. Also may be spiritual. You know, you never know. But anxiety is not always just feeling anxious and depressed and having a panic attack. Anxiety can also look like constantly worrying about the future, you know. Anxiety may also look like being a perfectionist. We think that, oh my gosh, everything I do has to be perfect. You know, you plan out your life so perfectly. But that sometimes is driven by fear, because sometimes you fear failure, you fear things going wrong, you fear being out of control, and that drives perfectionism. Because if things don't go your way, what happens? You crash. You become emotionally overwhelmed. You know, you have a breakdown because something didn't go as planned. Also, anxiety can look like rumination as well, where you constantly worry and think and meditate on what you've been through in the past, or pain you may have inflicted on someone else in the past, you know. So you find that your mind is working overtime to go through those events and find how you could have reacted, and try and figure out where you could have avoided danger one way or another. And then your mind is also now working now to currently identify stressors, to identify danger and protect you from that. And your mind is now also working into the future to think about possible points in your life that may be danger, and how to prevent you from that, you know. This is where things like phobias come from. This is where things like generalized anxiety disorder come from, because your mind anticipates danger and tries to protect you from it. So then maybe you'll find that one way to protect you from danger is to avoid going out, avoid whatever activity, you know, avoid people, avoid speaking. This is because of your mind just wanting to protect you from danger, because it's working overtime. And imagine, and remember, we said that stress is a release of adrenaline hormone, which affects every part of your body. So anxiety is being constantly under stress. So you can imagine if that hormone is constantly being released, the effect on your body that has. So I said it's important that you listen to your body, because it can manifest physically as well. So then how can one deal with anxiety? You know, I'll just speak of a few ways that one can deal with anxiety. The first one being distraction. Distraction is basically taking your mind away from thinking or dwelling on whatever is ruminating on. So doing an activity that will require your concentration, that will require your mind to fully be there. You know, it may be exercise, it may be cooking, it may be reading a book that interests you, it may be watching your favorite series. Some even say artistic expression, so finding something in the arts field. It could be singing, it could be painting, it could be coloring. I can personally attest to coloring, because when I was pregnant in the last few days, I remember I had like some anxiety about, I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't actually know what to expect. I've never been through this. I've seen it, but I've never actually personally been through it, you know. There's so much anxiety. When will the baby come? Am I ready to be a mother? Will I be able to even get through this birth? When labor comes, will I be able to handle it, you know? And I actually asked my husband to get me a coloring book and some coloring pens. And I started coloring and that helped a lot with the anxiety. It helped to calm me down. I remember in the last week when I was about to give birth, I was a lot more calm and less anxious than I had been previously, because I found something to refocus my mind and not constantly focus on the worry and fear the future that I didn't know was going to come, you know. So find something to express yourself, find something to keep your mind busy. With that being said, distraction is not healing. It's not wellness. It's basically a temporary measure to deal with anxiety and stress. It's not a permanent solution to it. And this is why then people will have poor distraction mechanisms, because you are avoiding dealing with the root of your anxiety, you are avoiding dealing with the root of your stress at the moment, and you'll constantly be trying to distract yourself all the time, and that doesn't help, because you're not actually dealing with what is causing your stress and your anxiety. And sometimes you may try to distract yourself with substances, or you may use drugs that you're not supposed to be using. Sometimes you may even eat unhealthily and binge it, or eat your feelings away, you know. Sometimes you may get into toxic relationships as a form of distracting yourself, or you may have poor coping skills like we mentioned earlier, you know. So this is because you are struggling to find a good outlet or a proper outlet. And the best way to find healing is to face the truth. So face the truth of whatever has been hard to deal with. Face the hard truths of whatever caused your trauma. Face the hard truths about whatever is causing your stress, you know. And it's important to reflect on what you've been through. It doesn't mean that when you reflect, you constantly have to think about it and worry about it. You just bring it to light. You bring it up instead of burying it. You bring it up one way or another, whether you write it down, whether you speak to someone, but reflect on it. Reflect on how it's affecting you now. Reflect on how it affected you then, you know, so that you can move on, so that you can leave everything and pick up yourself and move on with your life. It's also important to journal as well. So journaling really helps, because you are able to express yourself. You're able to express and put into words that which you're feeling. Sometimes it helps to voice out and say what you're feeling, you know. You may not always say that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling depressed, but you'll say that I'm feeling quite low, and I've been feeling quite tired, you know, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling helpless, I'm feeling worthless, or whatever. Bring it to light, journal it and write it down, so that you can see, when you speak it back to yourself, that, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going through, and this is not okay, I need to get help, you know. Speak to people that you trust, people that you love, people that are close to you. Speak to your family, speak to your friends, speak to your pastors or your leaders or your deacons or elders, you know. Speak to a therapist if you need to. Basically find people that you can speak to who can hold space for you. And by holding space, I mean that people who can sit with you where you are, people who can meet you where you are emotionally, people who can listen to you with compassion, you know, people who can come to your level, you know, and say, I hear you, you know, I understand what you're going through is very hard, I am here for you, you know. If you find that every time you try and speak about what you're going through, you are dismissed, or you are told that, oh no, you know, friend, you'll get through it, you know, just pray, it's gonna be okay, or, you know, you're not really listened to, then that person is not really holding space for you. This is a challenge to people out there, that it's important to be available and hold space for people, you know, more than just giving advice. Listen attentively, come to their level, you know, be empathic, show empathy, you know. So find people who can hold space for you. If you don't have anyone close to you that can hold space for you, then speak to a therapist, because therapists are trained. They are professionals who are trained to do this. They know how to sit with you and hold space with you, you know, and be with you in that moment and walk you through your journey of healing. So it's important that you find a good therapist, you know, find someone you can trust to speak to. So another way that you can cope with your anxiety is to follow things through. one of the things that trauma does to us is that it makes you doubt yourself. So you find yourself in an area where, in a place where you are very indecisive, in a place where you don't want to commit to any decision because you don't trust yourself. You feel like you won't make the right decision. You are scared of whatever outcome, you're scared of the inevitable, you're scared of the future, or you're scared of that which you don't know, but make a decision and follow things through, stick with it once you've made that decision, and accept that you won't always be right. You won't always get it right, and that's okay. Accept that sometimes you won't always make the right decision, because anxiety stalls us. It stalls us by indecisiveness, and this in turn creates new regrets and anxiety, because now you regret not doing what you wanted to do. You regret not making a decision. You now have anxiety because you didn't follow through. You now have anxiety because you didn't do what you wanted to do, and now you're constantly thinking and ruminating on that. Now you have the what ifs. What if I had left the job? What if I change my career? What if I write a book? What if I start a business, or whatever project you want to start? So it's important that you trust yourself, or start the journey to trust yourself in the small things every day. So if maybe you struggle with a decision, maybe on a route to take to work, just make the decision and go that route that you want to go. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. It's a lesson for another day. And I think that's one of the things that anxiety does. It robs us of the opportunity to make mistakes. That's how we grow and learn in life, by making mistakes, and it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not get it right. It's okay not to be a perfectionist. We serve a perfect God. We don't have to be perfect, but He is perfect, and His perfection is manifested through our lives, in that it covers our weaknesses. The Bible says His grace is sufficient for me, and His strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. So His perfection is as well manifested in our imperfections as well. So I hope this has helped someone out there. If you do struggle with mental illness in any way, please reach out to us, and if we can't help you, we will redirect you to the people who can help you. So you can just send us an email on office@lwTG.org, and we will assist you where we can. Please also give us feedback on this session. We really would love to hear from you if it has helped you in any way, and if there's anything else you'd like us to do. I hope that we can have more of these, where we are practical about mental health illnesses, and also we raise awareness on it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everyone.
Like the waves of the sea, your grace keeps coming in, and through the cracks of my heart, your grace is sufficient. On the shore of this heart, Lord, your love keeps coming in, and like the hour on high tide, your grace keeps running in, and for Father, for me, yes, for me, not for me, yes, for me, just for me.